The Tournament of Power arc was a very big deal for obvious narrative reasons. At the very end of Battle of Gods, the movie in early 2013, Beerus confirmed that there was an entire multiverse full of different gods of destruction and other incredibly powerful fighters, and immediately fan speculation was about, holy shit, there's going to be a multiverse tournament, or there's going to be a multiverse battle where all these people are going to meet up and fight one another. And throughout Super, this was like a slow build-up to this. The Universe 6 tournament introduced us to Universe 6. The Goku Black arc kind of introduced us to Universe 10, but this is really the arc where the multiverse got its time to shine, and of course, it was done through a tournament arc. And even then, there were other reasons to be excited, because new experienced series directors were being brought on who would help fully realize the storyline, which would be very, very fighting intensive. And also, they would be using a new visual filter to help give Super something of its own visual identity, which is a problem that Super in general has had until the new movie has released its new character designs, new style that will give the new content at least some style of its own. And so there were a lot of reasons to be excited for the Tournament of Power. I was not really one of them because I did not believe that the production of Super could sustain a big tournament that was supposed to have 80 people fighting against each other over a protracted span of time. And credit to where it's due, they managed to pull that off. I was convinced this tournament would suffer like 5 big animation breakdowns at the very least, and they pulled it off. Sure, not every episode was great visually, not every one of them was a home run, but on average, the Tournament of Power succeeded, at least visually, keeping itself at a decent length of quality, and they also did lots of really good things visually before the tournament, during the tournament, and it's a really good example of how modern Dragon Ball, if nothing else, is letting these really interesting animators do these great things with the animation that were never possible beforehand, and that is one thing that I can legitimately give praise for the modern run for. It's everything else in the Tournament of Power that doesn't really work, and while there are lots of smaller problems I can potentially get into, there are a handful of big ones that I think mostly hurt the arc overall, and I'm going to be focusing on them. They're not really, well, except one of them is not really based around any kind of specific character, but they're all more like narrative structure problems and things that I don't know why they're done the way they are, or things I don't know why they're even there in the first place. And the first one of them all is the 48-minute time length. Now, to say Dragon Ball abuses cinematic time is like saying Johnny Depp occasionally smacked Amber Heard across the face. This franchise has made a meme out of the 5-minute Namek thing precisely because of the anime adaptation, spending an entire season's worth of television, network TV by the way, having 2 guys fight each other on a planet that's supposed to blow up in 5 minutes, and in actual footage length, it takes about like 2 hours for it to happen. It is absolutely a meme, and it's a well-deserved meme, and even in the manga, where the battle is significantly shorter, the 5-minute thing is still a stretch. Now, stupid fanboy headcanon stuff aside about how, Frieza has a different measurement of time than you, and blah 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 blah. It's supposed to be 5 minutes, fuck stick, accept it, and please shove your headcanons where they don't lie. It's supposed to be 5 minutes, and I really doubt Toriyama considered that Frieza's alien examination of time mattered. But that's not the point. The point is, the Dragon Ball is no stranger to abusing cinematic timing, and the problem with abusing it to the degree that the anime version of the Namek fight does, and that the Tournament of Power does, is that it makes the time limit feel very pointless, because we know it's not actually going to last 48 minutes. We know that they don't have that little time to do it, and so what is the point of the 48-minute limit? We know that the story is just going to engineer that years of content worth later, the 48 minutes has passed, and we've just finished the tournament at the last possible second. So what is the point of the time limit? We know you're not going to adhere to it. It's not going to help create tension. And if anything, for me personally, it creates significant problems specifically because of the time limit itself. There are multiple instances where the fighting stops dead just so we can hear exposition from the people in the bleachers. And every time that happens, I'm wondering to myself, okay, at the end of this episode, you said there was like 2 minutes left, but then you just spent like 5 minutes expositing stuff with nothing else happening. So, and there, when we started this episode off with there being 5 minutes left, so what the fuck happened? Like, how did you condense a 5-minute exposition thing as like happening in the span of like a minute or under a minute? Do you see where I'm going with this? It just doesn't really work. And a lot of people have tried to explain this as, oh, everyone is fighting at supersonic speeds and we just slow it down for the sake of the audience, which, fine, that's okay for the fighting, but it doesn't help for the exposition. Because like I said, unless you're going to tell me everyone is talking at super fast speeds as well, it doesn't work. In fact, one of the most noteworthy instances of this happens at the end of the tournament where Android 17 is staring down Jiren. This is a point where there's less than a minute on the timer left in the tournament, and Belmont goes on a 2-minute long exposition dump about Jiren's backstory. Why is the time limit here? Like I already explained, we know you're not going to really adhere to it. We know you're just going to abuse cinematic timing, so why don't you just drop the timer and just say whoever has a representative left in the arena, that's the universe that wins, because that's basically what it amounts to at the end. The timer thing just feels like a really slipshod attempt at trying to create tension. Now, if they tried to actually do a timer that said you have 2 hours to win, and then every episode had like a timer ticking down to the end of the universe, that would be great. That would actually create a real sense of tension because they would actually be having the timer matter. But this way, it's just a thing that they keep talking about, especially during the, final minutes of the episode from the narrator's side, to try and create some tension, but it ultimately doesn't work. And while we're on the subject of the exposition, oh my god, this is easily some of the worst exposition I have ever fucking seen. 90% of the stuff that is said on the bleachers is absolutely pointless. It's so incredibly pointless that I am convinced that they did it just to make animating the fights easier, which is probably that, because having a bunch of still shots of people just talking to one another about shit we already know and shit we can figure out by ourselves is obviously a really good way of conserving animation. And because Super has a really screwed up production cycle, it makes sense to use something like that. But for God's sake, is it really so hard to at least try and make some of the exposition more worthwhile than it is? Do we really need like 5 cutaways to Kaba or Whis or Vados saying, oh my god, Kefla is powering up, when we can obviously see that she's powering up? And before you tell me, well, Ivan, Super is supposed to be for people who didn't watch the old show, if you've watched Super for more than 2 adjacent episodes by that point, you will know what the fuck powering up does. It means getting stronger. You know how it works, how it looks like. You don't need 5 cutaways telling me Kefla is powering up when I can fucking understand it by myself just fine. That's a big problem of the exposition. It is majoritively pointless. In fact, off the top of my head, I can maybe name only a couple of instances where I thought, okay, the exposition actually matters. And that's like for Jiren's backstory, Goku attaining mastered, or rather completed Ultra Instinct, how Goku gets Omen initially. There are instances where the exposition is actually worthwhile, but there's so many times where it's just like, oh my god, this dude is powering up. Oh my god, this dude is being pressured. Oh my god, Goku is stronger than this other person. Just in case Goku beating the shit out of Kale and Caulifla didn't already tell you that, oh my god, Goku is stronger than them. Really, cut that crap out, or at least make it more worthwhile, make it actually matter. The next problem is placement. Now, this might be a really weird one to point out, but What the anime of the Tournament of Power does a lot of times that the manga usually doesn't do in its adaptation is that if a chapter ends in the manga where Goku is fighting Toppo, the next chapter is going to have him keep fighting Toppo. This creates a nice sense of flow to the battles because it's not just randomly moving people around the arena and having people who weren't in their general vicinity like 5 seconds ago in Universe suddenly fighting each other, which is a big problem of the anime. There are constantly instances where one guy is fighting another guy at the end of one episode, and then the next episode they're fighting completely different people for absolutely no adequately explained reason. This creates a really big problem where every episode feels like it's a standalone thing, where it's completely disjointed from what happened beforehand, but it's obviously not because it's supposed to be the same story. And you might be wondering yourself how big of an issue this is, but a lot of people watching the Tournament of Power have said that they feel like they're watching standalone episodes for something that's supposed to be a continuous tournament, and I think the way they keep constantly throwing random people against one another who didn't fight beforehand is precisely what leads to this disjointed feeling from episode to episode to episode. Because if at the end of one episode Vegeta's fighting Toppo, and then the very next one he's randomly fighting, I don't know, Dipso or whatever, that really breaks the whole cohesion of the arc, because you're just like, wait, when and why did Toppo and or Vegeta disengage to go fight other people? Like, I feel like that shouldn't be important, and you're not showing it to me. You're just having two people who didn't interact before fight one another because I guess it's cool. And that is a big problem throughout the entire arc, and what I think leads to its big disjointed feeling. And the next one is make a tier list. Now, there's no way in fucking hell Toriyama, Toyotaro, Otori would ever do this, but I think it would really solve a lot of the problems, because a lot of the time you have instances where a character is like fighting another character at a certain level, and then in subsequent appearances they're considerably weaker for no adequately explained reason. Ribrianne is a pretty big exemplar of this, where when she transforms, she's able to take on Vegeta as a Super Saiyan very decently. And then in all subsequent appearances, she is worthless fodder until sometimes Goku will use Super Saiyan Blue to knock her down. So yeah, sitting down and creating a cohesive tier list for where everyone stands in relation to one another would fix so many problems. You have the people who are like base Goku tier. Then you have people who are weaker than base Goku. Super Saiyan 1 tier, Super Saiyan 2 tier, 3, God, Blue, above Blue, that kind of stuff. You sit down, you put everyone in tiers, and then you pair them up accordingly. This will easily allow you to avoid the whole problem of how the fuck is this person who is recently portrayed as being weaker than base Goku fighting them in Super Saiyan Blue, which is a thing that keeps happening even before the tournament, where you're just wondering yourself, how the fuck are these two people with such different levels of power possibly having a so-called even battle? And before you tell me strategy and tactics, yeah, because strategy and tactics really matters when Goku just powers up to Super Saiyan Blue and destroys Universe 9 easily. It really matters when he does the same thing to that guy from Universe 10 who like lays the mines on the ground and Goku just says fuck it, powers up and overpowers him. So yeah, please spare me the stupid strategy and tactics crap. It's just an excuse. And this would easily, once again, help a feeling of cohesion, because you'll know this person is as strong as Super Saiyan 2 Goku, and so when they fight someone who is consistently portrayed as stronger than them, when they win, or if they win, you'll feel a real sense of accomplishment because there will be a level of consistency to the fighting, which is not what is going on in a lot of the Tournament of Power. It would also help explain the whole thing where we keep having Goku and Vegeta pointlessly hold back or either go overboard with defeating people, and it would just help the whole thing flow significantly better than it already does. And the final alteration that I would make is Jiren himself. Jiren in the anime is such a big load of wasted potential, it's actually kind of terrifying. Having a dude who sacrifices everything to attain what he perceives as ultimate power because of his own personal tragedies, is a fantastic idea. The problem is that he is so ridiculously boring. The anime staff confused being a man of few words with having the unbridled appeal of a brick shithouse. And then when Jiren's backstory is revealed, it doesn't really help the character, it only makes me laugh at him more because not only is he personality-wise a generic stoic badass, he also has the most generic, stock, tragic anime backstory I've ever heard in my entire life. And it really doesn't help that whole theme of Jiren, the hero, is becoming less of a hero as the battle goes on, while Goku, the selfish battle junkie, is becoming more of a hero as the battle is going on, because Jiren in the anime is not a hero. He doesn't really give a shit about the Pride Troopers, he doesn't give a shit about heroes, about being one. All he wants is to get his wish and wants absolute power. And in the anime, I wonder why the hell Jiren is even a member of the Pride Troopers, because he doesn't really show any concern for others at any different point, and he just comes off as like an asshole, so I don't even know why this guy is part of this organization. The fix I would make here is very obvious. Give him manga Jiren's personality, where he is kind of stoic, but he does care about people. Have a scene where he like saves a planet and tells Belmond, if I hear about Universe 10 being threatened, I'm ditching your fucking tournament and going to save it. That was great. That really does show you that despite Jiren's personal problems, that he is a hero and he does actually care. And this would make the whole idea of Jiren, the hero, possibly needing to sacrifice his heroic traits to beat Goku, who's getting more heroic traits, that much more poignant. Or just cut out Jiren entirely and make Toppo Goku's primary adversary, because that theme of sacrificing your own righteousness, your own sense of justice to gain more and more power feels very, very poignant with Toppo in a way that even with manga Jiren, it still doesn't. So yeah, those are a couple of my big problems with the Tournament of Power, how I would fix them. Do you agree with these critiques? Do you agree with these solutions? If you do or don't, please comment down below, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Bye.